Hi, I'm Thanks Too Much. And today we're going to be taking a look at SCORN, a game that I have been looking forward to for a very long time, thanks to me being a huge fan of H.R. Geiger's art. Let's take a closer look. SCORN is a game that I've been looking forward to for a long time, thanks to me being a huge fan of H.R. Geiger's art. Like many people, I was first introduced to H.R. Geiger thanks to his excellent design of the Xenomorph in the Alien franchise. However, H.R. Geiger is more than just his creation of the Xenomorph. The Alien franchise is what vaulted him to stardom, but the rest of H.R. Geiger's work is just as beautiful in a perverse kind of way. Geiger's melding of the flesh along with mechanical parts is strangely alluring thanks to the sensuality he adds to his art. Some people overlook the sexuality that Geiger put in his work, but finding it isn't hard when you know where to search. I mean, just look at the Alien franchise. The facehuggers basically put down a long penis down a victim's throat to quote-unquote impregnate them, and one of the various ways a xenomorph can kill its prey is through penetration thanks to a lethal tongue that comes out like an uncircumcised penis. But this should come as no surprise to fans of H.R. Geiger, as his various books where he talked about his art point that he was inspired by many things, including women. As a straight man, H.R. Geiger was attracted to women and put that attraction to his art. He loved the look of women, the feel of women, the wanting of women. And if you research his art, you'll discover that one of his earlier drafts of the xenomorph was the head of a xenomorph with the slim, sensual body of a woman, along with other mechanical parts that have come to define his art. To say that games inspired by H.R. Geiger's art are few and far between is an understatement. Besides the classic but obscure Darkseid, not many games have delved deep into the art of H.R. Geiger as much as other artists and authors such as H.P. Lovecraft. So when SCORN was announced in 2015, people like myself were excited to play a game inspired by the art of a man whose work had not gathered the respect in video games that we knew he deserved. Fans like myself would have been more than happy to play a simple game based on H.R. Geiger's art as long as the aesthetics paid respect to his art. But as I played SCORN, I was surprised that the game went beyond just being a walking simulator celebrating H.R. Geiger's art. Many gamers before me put in their 2 cents as to what the meaning of SCORN is. The game has no dialogue. Everything is shown rather than told, so you need to pay attention to everything around you. However, as they say, actions speak louder than words, and in this destroyed world that SCORN puts us in, we are forced to do things that are selfish, self-serving, and sometimes downright cruel. The ending of the game, like many horror games, is predictably fucked up, but it's fucked up in a way where you can't say you didn't deserve it. Like in many horror media, you expect an ending that leaves your protagonist worse off than they were before. But SCORN provides a reason as to why you get a sad and cruel ending when all is said and done. You're not the protagonist. You're the antagonist. The world of SCORN is mean, nasty, and cruel. But you're no better. And as you go deeper into the game, you realize that maybe you also deserve to be a dried, lifeless husk like the countless bodies you step over in your 5-hour journey. SCORN starts out with your nameless humanoid character either waking up from a strange slumber or from waking up after a rather nasty fall. It's hard to tell until the game gives you a very on-the-nose hint at the end of your journey. Where you are and what has happened to the world you inhabit is all a mystery, so you better start walking to see if you can find answers to this place that is falling apart. The influence that H.R. Geiger's art has in this world is obvious from the get-go, but I'll talk about that in a minute. In this first part of the game, you have to find a way out of whatever building you are seemingly trapped in. As you explore, it's not long before you encounter your first puzzle that also happens to be the hardest one in the game. However, once you complete it, you know you'll get through the rest of the game with relative ease. Completing this puzzle will give you a huge egg-like contraption with a live humanoid being in it. It's really the best way to describe this thing. It's here where I see the main theme for SCORN. This is a game about very negative consequences. Your nameless character is not a good person, if it's even a person at all. Throughout the game, you will use the very few living beings that don't want to outright kill you to your own selfish advantage so you can save yourself from this cruel world. You'll abandon, mutilate, and outright kill other beings in this game that were just chilling and minding their own business before you came and took away whatever piece they had left before your arrival. Take this first humanoid creature you release from its egg, which I'll refer to as the hatchling. Before you can even choose its fate, you have to mark it with some machinery that causes it great pain. Then you have a choice to either kill it or free it. But even in this, the game deliberately fucks with the player. I studied the two rooms that are able to free the hatchling. One room had a scoop-like contraption, and the other room had a saw with dead bodies everywhere. During my first playthrough, I used the room with the scoop because I thought I was being smart, and by having a bunch of dead bodies in the saw room, I assumed the game was giving me an obvious hint that the room to use if I wanted the hatchling to live was the scoop room. Well, I was wrong, because when I used the scoop room, I inadvertently severed the hatchling's arm and killed it in the process. This took me by surprise, and not in a good way, because I thought I was being smart by studying my surroundings. Turns out the saw room was the way to go if I wanted the hatchling to live, because the saw breaks the egg's casing while only slightly mutilating the hatchling. However, the game sends a clear message by doing this early on. You can't trust anything in this world, nor can you trust anyone in it, and that includes you. Even the room that spares the hatchling has no good outcome for this creature that was just freed from its confinement. As the hatchling struggles to get to its feet like a newborn giraffe, your player character forces it to graft a key to its skin, which is a painful process since you are forced to do the same yourself at the start of the game, and if that weren't enough, you then force this poor thing to open a door necessary for progression, after which you abandon it to its fate. That's it. There's no good choice here. You either kill the hatchling outright, or you make it suffer while forcing it to open a door for you. After which, you simply leave it behind. Seeing as how this world is filled with death, destruction, and decay, the hatchling will be lucky if it makes it past a single day. There is no mercy here, and neither choice reflects well on the player character. This world is cruel, and you want to get out of it. And if you have to sacrifice the innocent so that you can survive, so be it. After the section with the hatchling, our nameless protagonist heads out to what I assume is an engine room that has been taken out straight from the xenomorph hive. While attempting to repair a big and strange engine-like contraption, the thing explodes and knocks our character out cold. Afterwards, you awaken in a cocoon-like environment where you promptly escape, going as far as pulling an umbilical cord-like wire from your abdomen as you escape. There have been many theories that the character you play as in this part of the game is not the same character you started with at the beginning of the game, but that's not what I want to focus on. Others have done a deeper and better job at exploring this theory than I ever will. Instead, I want to focus on how H.R. Giger's art is a perfect fit in making SCORN's world feel destroyed, helpless, and lost, while at the same time inspiring awe and beauty at just how decayed and destroyed everything is. While researching for this video, I read one of the various books that delved deep into H.R. Giger's art, and out of the many things that makes H.R. Giger himself so interesting, his tragic relationship with one of his muses, Lee Tubler, was one of the most interesting and heartbreaking. As mentioned earlier, H.R. Giger loved women, and in his world, he definitely had a fair share of relationships. However, Lee Tubler was different. She was an accomplished artist and actress in her own right, but for the sake of simplicity, since the details are complex like any personal relationship is, she was also a person who suffered from depression that was probably not helped by the pressures that fame can sometimes come with. Her relationship with H.R. Giger was also an open relationship, and while I am not insinuating that open relationships in and of themselves are toxic, The relationship between Lee Tubler and H.R. Geiger specifically was definitely a little rocky. It all culminated in Lee Tubler committing suicide in 1975, and despite the state of their relationship, H.R. Geiger was devastated, and that devastation would bleed into his art. His work would have a darker and more messed up tone from then on, which is completely understandable. We all deal with grief differently, and H.R. Geiger making his art have an even more darker tone after the woman he most definitely loved, all things considered, died, well, it's not just understandable, but I would even say expected. Some of the best artistic work comes from human emotion, especially very powerful emotions like love and grief. After Lee Tubler's death, H.R. Geiger put that grief to his art, and that art is perfectly exemplified in SCORN. Once you are outside and can see what is left in this world, I can't find a better explanation to how I feel about this world other than helpless and lost. The outside world is barren, with husks of those that were once alive littering the environment. The buildings you can see from the outside are slowly falling apart, and you can see the wind slowly peeling off the outside layers of these buildings. The insides are no better. The walls and ceilings are dark and dilapidated in a way that adds to the helplessness of the world's situation, and a huge and fleshy growth that spawns the enemies you encounter is slowly taking over. As if that weren't enough, it's in this part of the game where your character is attacked by a huge parasite that latches onto you for the remainder of the game. As you continue your hopeless journey to save yourself, this thing will both help and severely hinder you as it slowly overtakes you. And it will, eventually. But SCORN wouldn't be the game that it is if you didn't continue to do things that make your inevitable failure a deserved one. As you venture deeper into this destroyed world, you eventually come across one of the most intimidating and fascinating creatures in the entire game. While the game doesn't give this huge lumbering creature a name, fans have taken to calling it the Queen. This thing is fantastic monster design, and while its size is enough to make it frightening, its huge head with missing lower jaw and flaps of skin hanging from its mouth add layers of familiarity that is being perverted in this world. This creature even has egg-like larvae growing on its back, giving fantastic gross-out body images. It growls in a low but deep tone, reminding you of how small you are and adding to its intimidation factor. When you first encounter this creature, it doesn't pay much attention to you. However, in order to progress, you have to operate machinery that rips holes in its body, which result in very painful and gory results for this creature. The first time I did it, the creature writhed in pain and immediately identified me as the perpetrator of its pain. She stares at you with confusion and bewilderment, as if asking, "Why is this tiny thing hurting me?" Then I realized that this creature, regardless of its size, couldn't really fight back. Whatever this creature's purpose was, you find it stuck in place and completely helpless to my continuing journey to escape this world, and at this stage of the game, that meant entering through this creature's skin that I would continue to violently rip apart. You're forced to do this 3 times, and every time you have to hear this creature scream in pain as my initial feelings of fear quickly turn to sympathy towards this creature, along with disgust towards myself for what I was doing. While small common enemies do come to its defense, the creature itself can't hurt you. Turns out this gigantic creature has grown over an elevator you have to activate. To do this, you have to activate 3 switches inside the creature to make the elevator function again. Every switch you activate, you are forced to harm this creature that is doing nothing to you, ripping more layers of this creature's skin, and you don't get used to the screams of pain this creature wails by the time you get to the last switch. In fact, by the final switch, I found myself hesitant to keep going, which is an impressive change of emotions I had for the creature compared to how I felt when I first saw it. This creature went from being huge and intimidating to confused and helpless by the time I finally got the elevator going. But the game is about to make you feel so much worse. Once the elevator is finally activated, it skyrockets up to the final area of the game. But again, the creature has grown over the elevator, so when it goes up, so does the creature, and the elevator goes up really fast. It eventually comes to a sudden and very violent stop, with blood and viscera coating the floors of the elevator. Things are silent for a moment, and then you hear cries of pain, and of life slowly draining away. Your last image of this creature is of its head and loose skin dangling as its body has been crushed by the upper part of the elevator. I felt like shit when I watched this. This creature that looked so intimidating not even an hour ago now looks so helpless. Thanks to me. Not since Spec Ops The Line did I feel like I was the antagonist, the one causing pain. The creature that I feared not too long ago, I now looked with sadness and immense guilt. Whatever this huge creature was doing, it wasn't hurting me, and whatever piece it had, I took away. This creature might have looked like a monster, but in the end, I was the one behaving like one. In the final area of the game is where the parasite that cling onto you in the first third of the game really starts to take over your character's body. You grow root-like appendages that get so bad your hands eventually get stuck to a grenade launcher-like weapon you use during the game's only real boss battle. It is here that you commit your final atrocity in your desperate attempt to escape this hellish world. You need to power 2 humanoid machines to enter a gate that will take you to your salvation. However, these machines require power that comes from the crushed bodies of what I can only describe as hideous small pod people. Granted, the grotesque appearance of these pod people makes them repulsive at first, but just like everything you meet in the game, they aren't hurting anyone. They're just literally sleeping within their pods until you, once again, disturb their peace and force them into a cyborg body that resembles Krang from TMNT, only nowhere as kid-friendly. When the pod people are awoken by force, they inevitably start attacking you, which is fair enough considering what the player is forced to do to them once they are killed. These small series of boss fights are a little awkward to control due to the slower pace of the game, but the sequence is thrilling nonetheless thanks to fantastic sound and creature design. Once you use the grenade launcher to defeat the pod people's cyborg body, their lifeless corpses slide off the contraption with twisted eyes, signaling that they are well and truly dead. You then have to carry their lifeless bodies to the machine where their bodies are crushed and their viscera used for fuel for the 2 humanoid machines that you need to power up. You have to do this 3 times, and it doesn't get any easier by the 3rd time. Again, I just couldn't leave the feeling that I was the real antagonist. These pod people might look hideous, but they weren't hurting me until I interrupted their peace. They were literally just sleeping in their pods until I forced them to wake up and then kill them so I could save myself. And in the end, it was all for naught. When you finally finish your horrendous deed, the parasite is only moments away from taking you over completely. You are forced to mutilate yourself by cutting the roots that have grown over your arms so that you can use a contraption that would force the parasite to leave your body. As you do, you realize that the parasite that has been hurting you the whole game was once a human, and it is strongly hinted that this parasite was the character you played as in the first chapter of the game. By this point, even though you are free, the parasite has greatly wounded and mutilated your body. You have just enough energy to power the 2 humanoid machines and connect your mind to a hive mind that allows you to switch perspectives between these 2 machines. You also get to see the face of the character you've been playing as this whole time. The big gate of this final area opens before you, and on the other side of this gate lies salvation. As you get closer, the humanoid machine carrying you gets slower and slower and slower. You are so close. So close. And then the parasite finds you again. And this time, it's not letting go. Defenseless, your character's last moments are of this parasite overwhelming him and finally taking him over. The final scene of the game is your character becoming a mass of flesh and faces that stand in front of what could have been your salvation. So close. The ending was appropriately fucked up for a horror game, but I loved more that the game subverted the reasons why your character doesn't get a happy ending. Usually in horror media, the ending is of a protagonist or hero doing the right thing and trying so hard to overcome adversity only to fall short and meet their demise at the end. It's a reason why horror media is so unique, because unlike other genres, horror can mess with expectations and deliver a gut punch to the audience as its final scene. In SCORN, however, you deserve what you get. The hatchling you used to escape the first part of the game, the huge quote-unquote queen creature that you left dangling in the elevator as she dies, and finally the pod people you killed to save your own ass. You are not a protagonist in SCORN. You're the antagonist. And if you actually made it out of this world after all you did, then the ending would not have been as impactful. While I was bummed out that my character did not make it, I also could not say I didn't deserve it. You are the bad guy, and in the world of SCORN, no one escapes, especially you. Thank you for watching.